Hello and welcome to the Road to National series. Within this series, I'm going to try and qualify and compete in the British National Powerlifting Championships within raw powerlifting. Now, each episode within this series is going to show you some aspect of my diet, my lifestyle, but mainly my training leading up to try and compete. And there's going to be some sort of educational topic to go alongside this. So I'm going to cover things like my programming and how I'd advise you program, the max effort method, the dynamic effort method, why I utilize those methodologies, how I would advise you program accessories, how intensely you should be training your accessories, how much volume I'd advise, as well as specific things like pieces of equipment for a home gym if you're thinking of building that, what you should do whether you're injured or sick, or if you're going on holiday, how to manage that. There's going to be a wide array of topics that I'm going to cover, and if you think of any topic that you want me to cover, comment it down below. But without further ado, let's get to it. Okay, so today I'm going to be taking you through a lower max workout, and later I'm going to be talking to you about flexibility and mobility. But first, this is me building up to my max variation for this week, which is a banded deadlift. Here I fail the attempt straight away, and that is because the band tension is ridiculous this week. I've never used this much band tension before. I can't even test how much it is. I just know it's over 150. I applied some chalk and luckily managed to get it. I couldn't build up that much because once I had the plate set up, I didn't really have much weight increments to jump. The band tension was so high I couldn't slowly build it up. But anyway, a fast max effort there. Did manage to get it with a struggle, particularly because lockout is my weakest, and that is where the band tension was utterly ridiculous at the top. But happy I managed to hit it. So onto the accessories. As you can see, I am doing hack squats. I've managed to rig them up with a landmine setup. It literally just fits in the room. You can see the handle almost hits like the pillar on the way down, but then they're just missing the spotter arm that I used to re-rack it. It literally barely fits, but I find this a fantastic lower accessory, particularly in this gym where obviously I can't fit a proper hack squat machine or like a leg press or anything. This is great, and also whilst I've been dealing with my knee injury, this accessory seems to not hurt my knee at all, I think because it's a fixed plane of resistance. So anyway, that is the first accessory of today. Then I have hamstring curls, then I have single leg calf raises, and I do a drop set where on the last set of single leg calf raises I do some dual leg calf raises. That's a very easy way to drop set your calf raises. If you have been doing single leg, you don't have to remove any weight, you just add your second leg, and guess what, it's much easier. And then I end the session off with hip adductions on the roller. So whilst those accessories are playing, I'm going to talk to you about flexibility and mobility. So the first thing that I'm going to cover is stretching during warm-ups and dealing with flexibility before training. Now, yesterday I talked more in depth about warming up, but just to touch on this issue again, I do not recommend you stretch during a warm-up. And there are two reasons for this. The first one is it actually reduces your performance. There's a lot of studies suggesting that stretching before lifting weights can cause acute weakness. Not like bad weakness, but as in you're just not at your optimal. So if you're doing something like I was doing my max effort today, I probably wouldn't have made it if I had any more weakness. I was right at the limit of my capacity today. So I don't suggest you stretch during your warm-up for that reason, but also because you are cold at the start of your warm-up. At the end of your warm-up, it's fine, but stretching while you are cold can cause injuries. So talking about stretching and mobility work in general, it can definitely be beneficial for strength training. The reason is, first of all, most fundamentally, if you are struggling to hit the range of motion for an exercise, obviously increasing your capacity to go into a range of motion is going to help. So this could be for squats, for example, in powerlifting. If you never hit depth on squats, maybe the thing limiting you is stuff like your ankle mobility, and working on stretching your calves and your Achilles can help. It could be that your starting setup in a deadlift is very bad, and working on hamstring mobility would allow you to straighten your legs, get a better brace before dropping into your deadlift starting position and pull. It could be something like your general mobility is stopping you from hitting squat depth, or in something like Olympic weightlifting, if you can't front rack, you can't jerk properly, you can't train front squats, and you can't do like strict presses from an actual front rack position. That position is fundamental to your sport. So obviously working on mobility is important. Now, there are two ways that you can do this. The first one is by stretching, trying to stretch the muscles, and that definitely allows you to get more flexible. However, the other thing you can do is actually strength train through a large range of motion. What you can do is sort of combine stretching with weights. So an example of this could be something like a Jefferson curl. If you don't know what that is, it's where you're holding a weight and you basically roll down, keeping your legs straight, and you get a huge stretch on your hamstring. You allow your back to fully round. It's almost like if you were to just bend forward with your legs straight and try to touch the floor. That's a very common hamstring stretch, except you add some weight. And what this is going to allow you to do is it's going to allow your body to become stronger through that longer range of motion and more comfortable, which can actually lead to you getting more mobility. You can go further and more flexible because your muscle doesn't tense up. So for me, I've always had stiff hamstrings, and if I try and do that stretch where I lean forward and try and touch the floor, my hamstrings have always tensed up immediately. But since starting to strength train, I've actually done pretty little flexibility work, not a lot of stretching, but my mobility has actually improved. I can now reach further than ever, and that is just because I've improved my strength through that range of motion. So that can help with your mobility. The final thing to say about flexibility and mobility is that sometimes a lack of flexibility and mobility can work. So to take the example of squats, and in powerlifting, you just have to break depth where your hip crease is lower than your knee. But having more flexibility past that point is only going to make it so that your stretch reflex and bouncing out of the bottom position is lower down for you. All it's doing is extending your range of motion, and actually being a little immobile could help you get more compression at that bottom point, but also it acts more like a shelf. If you can't go much further than depth, you're never going to have to try and squat back up through that range of motion. You feel like you've hit your depth, you've just about hit powerlifting depth and stood up. So sometimes mobility strictly for strength sports isn't always required, and it can be advantageous. I advise you still do regular mobility work. Don't actively try and make yourself less flexible. Just try and get strong, and definitely for your overall health, it is better to be mobile than to not. So that's pretty much all there is to say about flexibility and mobility. If you are going to stretch, I recommend you do it at the end of the session when you are fully warm. Warm muscles are able to stretch better. Your muscles are almost like chewing gum. If you try and stretch chewing gum before it's been chewed, it's very brittle and it can cause injuries, versus if you've warmed up, that's like chewing the chewing gum, it becomes stretchy. So that is when I would do your stretching and flexibility and mobility work. So coming back to the session today, I'm on my final accessory of the hip adductions. These were an absolute killer. Trying to drop basically as far as I can go. I've been progressively overloading these with range of motion, and I definitely went deeper on these today than I ever have done before. They're also the things that now it is the following day as I record this voiceover. They're the things that have the worst DOMs are my adductors. So that is it for today's video. I hope you did in fact enjoy the video. If you did, drop it a like, drop it a comment, subscribe, click the bell, all of those good things. Look, I can barely walk there. Find it quite amusing, and have a great day.